Always the most ominous part, and we are live. Should I sing the theme song, Adam? I remember last time you said we needed the IntelliJam song here, and I completely forgot about it. So it's welcome to IntelliJams. All right, we got a different set of characters here today. Where we got Victor joining Adam and I. This is the second in a 3-part series that we're doing on kind of live jams, where we're talking about offers for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. If you missed the last one, we did it on Labor Day as a dress rehearsal for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Today, we want to jam on offer structure, offer testing as we go into Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So you got myself, you got Victor, you got Adam. And at any point as we go through this, let's have comments, questions, concerns, drop them. If you're watching this on Twitter, you should be able to just drop it there. We will see it no matter where you're watching. And if you have a question, we'll try to stop to answer it. When we don't have questions, I'm going to try to get these two very smart gentlemen to keep us occupied with what is going on. So before we jump into Black Friday, Cyber Monday offer building, offer testing, let's talk a little bit about what happened since the last live stream. Last live stream, we were talking about Labor Day. Labor Day has come and gone. Anything that you guys saw kind of over the course of Labor Day and as we're approaching Black Friday, Cyber Monday that points to maybe BFCM will be a little bit different this year?
Yeah, I would say, well, from what we analyzed and the charts that we have seen there, I would say the margin protection will be something that I personally hope is one of those predictions. Like people will be checking on their margin protections more when they are thinking about the offers or discounts that they are using.
Yeah, I mean, in a macro sense, we've seen the tariffs obviously have an impact on brands' margins. And so, when tariffs first went into effect, we saw prices generally across the board go up about 3 to 5%. And we've actually, a lot of our data shows that some of those prices are coming down. But at the same time, the depth of discount has maybe this Labor Day compared to last Labor Day been a little bit more modest. And so looking to see going into this Black Friday, how are brands thinking about their margins and like balancing margins with obviously like trying to hit home runs in sales.
Yeah, I think I can bring this up. So what Adam was talking about there, we started to take a look at IntelliJam's brands and what percentage of our brands were actually offering promotions and like how steep of a discount were they going. And you can see kind of in blue here what happened in 2024 versus what happened in 2025. And like you see a slight decrease in the number of brands, you see a decrease in brands who are discounting overall through Labor Day. But you see the biggest drop off in that deep discounting, which I think kind of is speaking to what Victor was talking about. Tariffs have put more margin pressure on brands. So it makes sense that like, hey, we might still be going into discounts, going into promotions, but hey, I'm not as comfortable going into that deep discount. And I think like this one's more of an opinion piece than backed by data, what I'm about to say. But when we were looking at basically when did Black Friday, Cyber Monday promotions start last year, like we started to see those happen as early as mid-October. And it really started to pick up kind of like the first Monday in November. And one of my hypotheses here is like we actually might have more time to experiment and test this year than we did in previous years, because I don't think because people or brands are going to be wanting to protect those margins, I don't think we're going to see people try to pull Black Friday, Cyber Monday like back into October this year. I think you're going to see a more traditional start inside of November. You might even see brands kind of like be a little bit more aggressive on a shorter window than trying to extend the window in totality.
Totally.
I will go also like maybe, yeah, like numbers will say the promos will run shorter, right? But also I will think that there will be brands maybe testing like how these different offers that they want to run, they will be perceived, if you know what I mean. Like instead of trying, okay, I'm not going deep this year, but how I can make sure that the different value perception of this offer can be greater now.
That is a perfect segue into like one of the main talking points in the title of this is the anatomy of an offer. And I think like you're exactly right is, I mean, this part is an opinion. Like I'm seeing more of our brands start to test different offer mechanisms. Like, do I need to use percentages off? Can I do something? Can I do something else where it's not as big of a cogs hit to me? Adam and I have kind of jammed at nauseum on IntelliJams about perceived value versus actual value and using like a gift because it has a higher perceived value than the actual cost. So maybe let's talk a little bit about the anatomy of an offer and like what do brands kind of like, and we can use IntelliGems customers and like what we're seeing across the board as examples of this is like, what are these different components of an offer? Like we've got the audience, we've got the mechanism, we've got the amount, and we've got the experience. So it's like, let's talk a little bit about those different levers inside of the offer we can pull, because like, if there's one thing I want everyone to walk away with this from, it's that like, you don't need to just use a straight percentage off as you go into Black Friday. Like it doesn't have to be 20% off because I did it last year. So, any of those like areas where either of you kind of want to start, maybe I'll start with you, Adam, like any kind of inside the offer anatomy that you think's important to hit on.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned a bunch of good things. There's like how much is the offer, what's the mechanism, et cetera. I think like one framing that I've really gravitated towards is sort of three dimensions of an offer. There's the who, the what, and the when. And when you think about like a 20% off site-wide offer for everyone, that's kind of like the simplest form an offer. But there's really like so many different ways that you can be a little bit more prescriptive, and it really depends on what your goals are. And so like we'll use the sort of these three dimensions, the who, what, and the when, against those goals. But maybe just to talk about those three dimensions, the who is like, does everybody get this offer, or is there a narrower audience or subset of people that gets this? And you touched on audience. There's the what, which is like, what is the offer? Is it 20% off? Is it like buy X get Y? Is it a gift with purchase? Like that's like a lot of the mechanisms in the amount. And then there's the when, which is like, is this going on, starting October? Is it triggered by something, right? Like, do you get this offer when you abandon cart? So I think that there's a lot of ways to use those dimensions of the offer to achieve different goals. And if one of those goals is margin protection or being a little bit more efficient or targeted with where the depth of offer goes, you can use some of those dimensions, either whether that dimension be the who and the audience and like who's going to get this to be targeted, the when and be targeted then, or the what. It's like, hey, let's target only people who buy X product get Y, or like hit a certain threshold, et cetera. So I think that like, again, we should talk a little bit about goals as well, and I'm sure we will. But I think one of the like really helpful ways to think about sort of the dimensions that you have in order, and the levers that you have in order to be more targeted, is against these like three dimensions of who, what, and when.
Okay, let's dive into those then. Let's talk who. So I think that this is an interesting one because as I'm looking at kind of like, Victor, you did like a big offer analysis on like what people are doing. And like, I think it's interesting to watch what kind of like offers happen all year round. And then like what kind of happens as we get into BFCM, as we get into November and we approach like the actual big weekend. I've seen a lot of chatter from like who, this kind of maybe hits into like the who and the when a bit, is like, I got the big deal, or I've got the big offer or the big promo that's going to run Friday, like maybe Friday through to Cyber Monday. But in the build up to said big event, I might want to do more kind of like tactical things. So like, Adam, when you were talking about when there, maybe it's daily deals. Like I've been seeing a lot of this is like, hey, I want daily deals going up where it's like, it's targeted, it's more surgical in nature than like, hey, here's like my blanket best offer. Like, would that be a good kind of way to think about the when on that? Or is that more of the who?
No, I mean, I think that would be very much the when, like this day you get this. And so it's like, you're going to time bound these offers. And so I think that's like one approach. Another approach might also be like using different, so similar in nature, but like using different offers over the course of this like sort of Black Friday window, right? So like the day of Black Friday, and I know a lot of brands do this already, where it's like, Black Friday has a an offer, but that's only live either for Black Friday or for that weekend. And so you can still like have lots of different offers or and some sort of offering live over the course of the entire holiday shopping period. But it doesn't have to be the same offer the whole time, right? Like you can time bound them. And I mean, I think outside of Black Friday, the when also to me is this based on a period of time, or this is also being triggered? And so like you don't necessarily get this just because you come to the website or because like this is going on, but this is like triggered. So you get this when you add an item to your cart and go to checkout, but you don't complete checkout, and then 3 days later or something like that, right? So the when could be sort of a life cycle. It could be you make a purchase and then don't purchase for 60 days. So that's a sort of a win back campaign. So the when has a lot of sort of like life cycle dimensions as well to it. But I think for the purposes of Black Friday, thinking a little bit more about like when does this offer apply during that holiday shopping period?
Yeah. When does it start? When does it expire? And like, again, in the daily deal sense, it's like this deal starts today, ends end of day, next deal starts the next day, ends at the end of the day. So on the who side, Victor, I think this is something that I know you're super passionate about with what you've been posting lately, is like kind of like the goals of Black Friday and like having offers that are kind of targeted at specific groups, because like depending on what your goals are for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, like this might not be a blanket offer, or you might have the this is for everyone and this is for someone else type offer.
Right. Yeah. I think that everything there should start with one question to yourself, like what I want to achieve there, what I want to achieve this Black Friday, right? Basically, what is my goal or my why, right? So that question, I think, will help you to determine, okay, how I want to deliver this, or to who or what or when, right? So basically, just putting this a scenario, let's say, I don't know, your goal this Black Friday is to preserve your profits, right? And then from that, the question is like, okay, I want to preserve or protect my profits from my shipping strategy perspective, or from my price strategy perspective. I think that will depend on where do you see like the main pain of your business right now. And from there, now that you know in what topic you want to focus, for example, let's say it's cost of goods is where you have the main problem right now, and you want to preserve your margins from that perspective. Now, I want to test on my price to protect my margins, but from the new audience, a new audience, let's say meta traffic, right? Now that will tell me like, okay, this is my who, right? We are going to have like, okay, this promo that is going to be able to protect my margins will be for those who are coming from my meta traffic, right? And now that I know my meta traffic, that tells me that who, like, okay, how this behaves in terms of my cost of acquisition or my margin contribution. And that will give you like a specific segment on where to focus your promotion or your offer for this Black Friday.
Yeah. So for who, it's basically like segments of customers and potentially channels. And like the channel actually is usually a segment of the customer. So like, Adam, I know you and I have jammed in the past about like, hey, could I have an offer that is specific to a Klaviyo segment? And like, I'm going to send that out, and like, I'm going to be very targeted. Again, like if my goal this Black Friday is I want to maximize profit, it's like, okay, I'm going to make offers that are specific to different segments. I could go into Klaviyo, build a segment of customers who have purchased a specific product multiple times, and run an offer that is like very steep discount to get on subscription. Like, hey, these guys have shown me that they've bought this multiple times. Like, I can potentially get them on subscription. And like, that's a very specific offer type to a very specific who. And like the when here is the triggers actually already happened to allow me to build that list to send it. And then if you're going to go for like a more of like a revenue, like, hey, I just want to grow my top line sales inside of here as much as possible. Now, maybe a hot take by me is like, my personal philosophy on Black Friday, Cyber Monday is it's more like wringing out the sponge. It's like, hey, I've collected all these email addresses. I've had all these purchases in the past. Like, this is a good way for me to go engage and get people to come back. I personally, again, this is a personal opinion, is like, I don't think Black Friday is like a great customer acquisition time. Like, you probably have already had an interaction. So like, hey, you like, if your goal is to drive top line revenue, that's where maybe that like blanket 20% off for the weekend is more effective. If it's to preserve profitability, if it's to protect margins, like, I don't want to offer percentages off. I might want to, again, use something with a higher perceived value. And I think this is a good bridge into like that what component that you were talking about, Adam, is like, you don't have to use a percentage. And I think the reason we use percentages is because like we did it last year, or like my
Yeah.
competitor did it.
I mean, I think that the who and the what are often very, especially in Black Friday, very intricately linked. So on the who, as we like segment into the what, I've seen brands, some of the most effective Black Friday promotions, in my opinion, have tiers and layers of like, not everyone needs to get the same discount. It's not the most efficient. It's not the most effective. And so we are going to have different whats for different who's, right? So, which leads us into what are some of these whats? And Victor talked a lot about like margin protection. One thing that I think is important to think about on that perspective is like, are we thinking about it from strictly gross margin as a percentage, or are we thinking about it from total gross profit? And so let me give an example where it's like, you can have two different offers that have a very, very similar amount structure, but will affect gross profit very differently. So one is get 25% off, and the second is buy one, get one 50% off. So if you were to buy two, you get effectively 25% off, right? So buy one, get one 50% off, and get 25% off mean that if you buy two, you get 25% off. However, the difference is that if you only buy one, in the case of get 25% off, you're still getting 25% off. But in the case of BXGY, you're actually not giving any discount in that case. And so for people who buy two, now like you have more total profit because you've got 100% margin, or you've kept 100% of your margin on that first product. Yep. And you're still probably making some margin on that second at 25% off, or at 50% off, as opposed to the first situation where you're now like putting into your margin on that first product. So similar like margin percentage profile, but because the BX get Y is going to drive like 2 units, it's going to have higher total profit dollars. So anyway, that's where like the what can make a huge difference. You also have to think about, however, does that offer make sense? Like, is this a situation where it's going to be like, I'm going to buy one as a gift and I'm going to also buy one for myself? That's like something that I do a lot in these BX get Y situations. I'm like, oh, wow, like I always wanted also like a whiskey decanter for myself. So in addition for buying one for my brother, I'm going to buy one for myself. And so that's get. I wasn't sure what I was going to get my second brother, so now I'm just going to get 2 whiskey decanters because I can. And so I think that like thinking about who is the audience and making sure that the what connects, but then also again tying it back to your goal is really important.
There's something you hit on in there, and someone actually just texted me a question, and I'm not going to out them because they should have put it into the comments. And if you're listening and you have a question about anything, throw it into the comments. We will stop and answer it. So you hit on tiers there. How would you try to figure out, so the actual question is, how would you figure out what to offer inside of those tiers? So like what should be the amount for achieving a tier? But I'm going to add another question to this as like a follow-up, which is like, how do you even know where to set those tiers? So let's talk about tiered offers for a second. What should you offer? And like, how would you figure that out? And then where are we going to put these thresholds to achieve, and how would we figure that out?
So, and Victor, I know, has a lot of experience building tiered offers. So I'll let him talk a little bit about like some of the merchandising and like user experience side of things, because I think that's such a powerful lever here. But how do you know who to offer it to? For me, so much is about incrementality. And it's like, does the additional 5% off or does the additional $20 off actually get you over the line? Or am I just burning margin? And so how do you figure that out? Like, obviously a little self-serving here, but testing
Test it.
is the best way, is the only way to know what are you going to get, where can you find incrementality. So I don't think that there's still time left. It's only end of September. There's still ability to run tests and try and understand at least directionally some incrementality of different types of offers. But I also think that there's a whole lot of lift to get gained out of the like tiering nature of these things. And I think what's so great about tiered offers is there's a very strong feedback loop to the customer about a motivation to spend more. So I don't know, Victor, I know you've built a bunch of different of these like sort of tiered offers and unlockable things. I'm curious like what sort of your experience was building all those different types of offers in the past.
Yeah, I will say that when we are talking here tiers, and my mind directly related to the buy box where you mainly normally see these kind of offers there, it's more about also like before checking like or saying, hey, I'm going to do a tiers offer here, say like what I want to achieve with that, right? Like, okay, does it make sense for the extra unit give this amount of discount or something like that? But then it's like something very important in that experience of that discount tier. It's like, okay, is it bringing clarity? Is it removing the friction in order to understand the offer that I'm giving here? And that for sure can help to increase the impact of whatever you are doing in that buy box. If we are talking here about a buy box, right? Like, what is the experience on how clear I'm communicating whatever I'm having here to make it actually work?
Yeah, I think like anytime you're using a tier, it's only as effective as like how clear you make it at what points are these available. So like inside the buy box, like progress bars come to mind, progress bars in the cart slide out, progress bars like always have it directly in front of someone. And I think like something we didn't really hit on there is when you're putting a tiered offer in place, like I think most people, if they're going to put a tiered offer in place, like they're kind of, even if they haven't fully stated it, like the goal is AOV, right? Like, hey, I want to build baskets by giving these tiered amounts. And then the question becomes like, hey, how do you actually figure out where those tiers should be? I think like, again, like test it. But if you want just like a kind of like rule of thumb here is like check what your current AOV is and like set the first threshold like slightly above that. If you want to get even more sophisticated here, like Victor and I have been talking about like looking at your order data and like looking at like the mode, like where are orders naturally clumping, and try to like create these tiers like just past where these are naturally clumping so that you can try to get someone to stretch a little bit here. Because I think like one thing that can fall really flat with a tiered offer is if the tiers are too big, they don't actually motivate any behavior. They can actually do the opposite, which is like, oh yeah, I want those things, but like I have to go from $50 to $200 to get to like the first tier. Like I'm just not gonna do it.
Yeah.
Adam, I can see you kind of teeing something up here in the background. Is there something you wanted to go into specifically?
Yeah, I mean, this is, feel free to throw my screen up because I wanted to talk a little bit about incrementality. This is from, and maybe a quick plug, if you don't subscribe to me and Drew's newsletter, we push out a newsletter every week. This is from a couple weeks ago, but we were talking a little bit about like sort of economic principles, but then like how there is this concept of incrementality. And so one, sort of way of thinking about this is how much am I selling, right? So like how much profit am I making? And so in this box here, you have like a supply, a price demand elasticity curve. You have at this price, you will sell this quantity, and so the area under this square or rectangle here, this is your total revenue. And then because you have the unit cost here, this is your margin. But what basically this is suggesting is that there's probably some people where if I like lower the price, I'll sell, more quantity, and the margin will be like thinner but wider. And if you sell fewer quantity, you'll have more margin per unit, but maybe not not as much total profit. But what's probably like an even better way of thinking about is like, hey, how can I like create actually steps along here where I can capture the people here in this triangle that weren't going to buy at this price, but by decreasing the price, I'm actually getting more demand. And how can I like actually capture more margin from the people who are willing to spend more? And so actually by having multiple price points or multiple discount points along that threshold, this is a little bit more of the like tiered who as opposed to a tiered offer.
Yeah.
But by using a tiered who and knowing who is more willing to pay a higher price versus who would be more likely to convert from a steeper discount, you can actually like kind of fill in this curve.
And so I think you might be watching, but Nate Lagos on his podcast, he was kind of talking about this ability to like step here, where it's like, hey, I know that people who are coming in through paid spend, like they don't have any historical reference points on like any of my prices. So like I can do different things through like a paid ad channel than I can through my email list or my SMS list, where like someone might have an existing point, or like if they're a previous purchaser, they do, like they already bought once and they already spent something. And like how you organize, like you were talking about the people component of this, but there's also like you can kind of like organize your catalog to achieve similar things as well. As like, hey, can I have particular products that are going to allow me to charge a higher price, even though my unit costs are similar, and like I'm targeting a different group of people to do like something very similar.
Right. 100%.
Love it. Okay, we got a little bit away from Black Friday, Cyber Monday there for a second, but like fantastic lesson there. Like there's always uncaptured margin to potentially go chase. And like again, offers are not exclusive to Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Like there are campaign-based offers for different holidays. There is your welcome offer. There is offers that you are doing to VIPs. Like these are all important things to think about, and that incrementality and how you're going to eke out more margins is something that you should be doing all year long. Like that is not Black Friday, Cyber Monday specific at all. Okay, again, anyone listening, throw questions, throw comments, and we'll get into them. I think maybe, so we talked about like the who, the when, the what, and like, hey, I have my audience, I have this mechanism. It could be percentage off, it could be gift with purchase. And then there's like the amount for that. Like, let's talk a little bit about testing there. Again, like shameless plug, this is something we're really good at, is I've decided on a mechanism, I've decided on an audience, and like, I don't know what that amount is going to be. This is a very common test that we are seeing a lot of our brands do right now, is like, if I'm doing a percentage off, should it be 10%? Should it be 15%? Should it be 20%? If I'm doing a gift with purchase, what product should it be? What is the maximizing product to include in that offer? So, Adam, maybe let's start with you here. To get to that amount, like how would you structure a test? Let's just assume you've done all the other stuff and we know I want to do again, let's do percentage off discount, because I think it'll be like the easiest to kind of talk through. And probably a lot of people that are on the call right now are thinking that might be the path. But how would you figure out what the best percentage is through testing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a pretty like naive approach, which I think that like, hey, let's say we don't have any strong intuitions about what the incrementality is here. We don't have any strong intuitions about what is going to resonate the most. So let's take a naive approach and just sort of take what my best guess of what would work well. So maybe last year I did 15% and I want to go foot forward with 15%. I'm going to probably test a little bit lower, so say 10%, and a little bit higher, say 20%, to try and understand a few different points along this elasticity curve to see, hey, are there any non-linear changes to demand as I increase that discount, minus 5% and plus 5%. When we run that test, IntelliGems will tell you, okay, 20% converted better, but by how much? It boosted AOV, but by how much? Or maybe it had a downward pressure on AOV because the deeper discount actually made people just spend a little bit less. And when we look at AOV, we look at it net of discounts, which is, I think, the right way of doing it.
The right way to do it. Yep.
And then in addition, if you share your COGS with us, we can also look and see like, how depth, like, what was that incremental 5 or 10% from 10 to 20? What was the effect on your total margin profile, and how much more profit did you make? So we can definitely, I would say the naive approach would be start with the foot forward, go a little up, go a little down, and try and understand the elasticity. I want to like pause there because I think that that's like the starting point. Maybe Victor, you have something to add, but I have a like sort of a second iteration on top of that after this.
Okay.
Send
So,
this.
Alex, I know you were asking about the discounts and how deep we should go and what should be the approach. And I don't want to go away from that, but also like I was trying to share here. Let me share my screen.
Where are you? There you
Here.
are.
So I was posting this from oh, sorry, it's this one. Let me get it here. So I recently posted this based on a video that I saw from Roman and Andrew here. And I know, like, we typically will go with the discount and we will see like which one is our incrementality there. Based on our goal, we will determine, we will test which one is our best discount. But I also want to like emphasize that again, I know we started with this, but discount is not the only way, right? Maybe
Yep.
before going with the discounts, before testing the discounts, you could be doing a couple of optimizations that doesn't necessarily take into your price or your discount, but on your cost of goods, right? So in this approach that I was taking here, Roman and Andrew, they were talking about supply chain, but also one approach there is to simply like, okay, evaluate through testing could be one methodology. How you can, like, what are the features of your product that are actually adding value to your customer, right? And identify which ones work and which one doesn't. And based on that, maybe you can remove some of your cost of goods, which will increase your margin, which will help you to will give you more room to test on these discounts, right? Because now you have a better margin approach, and it will be just more room to test different things for your Black Friday Cyber Monday thing.
And I think one of the things that Victor, you're probably getting at too, is like the merchandising potentially of the offer in general. But like, I think that merchandising is so important. Like, if, for example, like an extreme example would be if you said, hey, I'll give you free shipping at $100. But if you didn't tell people that they have to spend $100 to get free shipping, you're like missing so much of the value of that offer, right? Because then all those $90 carts, they get to check out, they see $7 shipping, and they're like, oh, like, do I want to really spend like another 8% of my order value on shipping? And they don't even realize that if they just add $10, then they would get shipping for free. So effectively, like 3 of those $10 is what they're paying for. So I think that merchandising is so important, and communicating the offer and like how you display is like very important. It's not just what is the offer, but it's how you express that. Maybe we can add a fourth dimension here, which is the how. But I really do think that that's so important. But then, Alex, you had asked this question like, how do I use testing to figure out what is the best offer? And I want to challenge even the framing of that question when I said, I gave an answer, but the framing of that question implies that there's like one right offer. And I don't think that that's true. Like, why can't I do 10 and 15 and 20? And maybe it's like I'm going to stagger it over multiple different days, but maybe I figure out, hey, my returning customers, 15% is the best for them. For paid social, 20% works the best from a pure profit point of view, taking into account both conversion and margin. And then maybe for paid search, like not paid search, but organic search, people who are looking for this product, who are like, hey, I know that like my cousin wants X, Y, and Z for Christmas. Let me like buy that for them. And so they type that into the search bar. Like maybe they only need a 10% off, or maybe they'd only need 5% off. So I think that like being able to be a little bit targeted and get a little bit of the best of all worlds here. So changing the frame of mind of what is the offer that works best is a good question to be asking, because a lot of people are just like, hey, let me just choose an offer, and they're not even thinking about what is the offer that works best. However, I want to frame even that challenge even that thinking to say, not what is the one offer that works best, but what are the collection of offers? What is the offer strategy cohesively that works best?
Okay, so let's go down that path of, because I thank you for reframing that, because I agree. Like there's going to be the best way to approach. Like, again, the reason we broke this offer down into its anatomy is there's a bunch of different ways you can go slice this up to try to achieve the goal that you're trying to achieve. So through testing here, I think like two-parter. Once again, I will say, if anyone has a specific question, please stop us. We will stop and answer your question. Two things here is like, okay, we go back to testing this. So Adam, you said like, hey, there was the easy way, and then you had kind of like a better way to think about this, and like actually instrumenting these tests to figure out what you should be doing. And like, there's what I was saying, which is like, hey, say I'm just going to make one big offer for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. How would I figure that out? On the flip side is like, how do I test to figure out what those groups of, like, how do I find those pockets of people that I'm going to like change these offers up for? And then follow-up question on that, let's answer those first two, is like, we have a month and a bit before we get into November. Does how you would do this change on a truncated timeline? Oh, Adam, you're muted.
What was the first question again?
You had an idea of like, hey, the simple way to test an offer is like, what is your intuition? Go a little lower, go a little higher.
Right.
That was the easy way. And then it was like, hey, there's probably a better way to do this. And then the second was, how do we find those pockets of people where we can make different offers?
Yeah, I mean, I think those two are intricately related. And what I posted in the chat as we're talking about this is like sort of the levels of sophistication that we can get with our offers. And so it's like entry level beginner is make sure it's merchandised, make sure we're communicating it effectively, probably very low hanging fruit, high value. The like next level class, let's call it like sophomore or junior level, is let's A/B test and let's do this thing where it's like I had an intuition, but let me test a little higher and a little lower to see if I can find a better offer, a more efficient offer that is like one offer globally, and maybe instead of 15%, 10% is sufficient, or instead of 15%, 20% really drives a tremendous amount of conversion. So what is the better offer? And then like sort of graduate level, the layer on top of that might be personalized. So the way I would do this, and I'm obviously sort of taking this from the perspective of if I was using IntelliGems and I was operating a brand, I would run this test 10, 15, and 20% off. And I would look and slice the data at different audiences and try and figure out what is profit maximizing for paid social, what is profit maximizing for organic search, what is profit maximizing for my returning customers. And I would try and figure out, okay, at each of these different dimensions, and that's not necessarily a mutually exclusive group, but we can try and think about some of these audiences mutually exclusively. What are the profit maximizing, the growth maximizing offers? And once I know what the growth maximizing offer is for each audience, let me then set that up where, hey, if you come through this channel, I'm going to merchandise and give you automatically X. If you come through this other channel, I'm going to merchandise and give you automatically Y. And so you can sort of, from the A/B test, understand which of these is like going to maximize growth, going to maximize your total profits for each of these subsets of users. And I think that's where like, I say graduate level. I don't think it needs to be so hard and so sophisticated. Like this is like, you know, we can all do this. I mean, this is our job, right? Like this is, you know, what we're being paid to do, is to grow the companies that we're working for. And so I don't think that we need to think of this as like, oh, I need a PhD in data science to do this. No.
No one asked me, but I'm going to ask myself the question just to say something here. It's like there's in a month here, like you're not going to be able to test everything. So like, hey, if you're listening to what we're saying right now and you're thinking to yourself like this, I could probably get a little bit more surgical with what I'm going to do this Black Friday. Are there certain tests I could go do that are going to give me the best chance at learning something that I can go apply? So I've been working with a brand, and we ran like the mechanism test, and then we followed it up with the amount test. And that mechanism test was like, hey, we're going to run a percentage off, we're going to run a gift card, and we're going to run a free gift at the same threshold. Which of these is profit maximizing? So we ran that. And again, you can slice what Adam was saying. I can take that mechanism and I can start to slice it up. I can look at channel. I can look at new versus I can look at returning versus first-time customers and be like, oh, returning customers are seeing value in that gift card, but it's meaningless to first-time customers. Okay, that's something I can use to apply at a later date. I take the winner. In this case, it was the percentage off, and I do what Adam was talking about before. It was 15% off in our test. Let's do 10, let's do 20, and see where the profit maximizing piece is in there. And again, slice it up and look at the different audiences, look at the different channels to see. Again, we're using profit maximizing here. Like if you pay attention to any of the IntelliGems content, that's our usual goal, is to be as profit maximizing as we can. I am now able to take those two tests and like chop up and look at those different audiences and look at those different channels and kind of infer different things I could try in pockets without needing to kind of like test for the next year. So like, again, this isn't necessarily what I would recommend you do to figure out your more broad strategy, but on a truncated timeline, that can give you a lot of information.
Yeah.
You can also see like how these different mechanisms serve to different goals that you might have. And you can see that through different audiences, right? Maybe you are running this test of free gift versus percentage off versus dollar amount. And now maybe you are seeing like, okay, maybe with my email traffic, I see that I have more volume instead of more profits, but maybe more volume is something that I want to do with this specific traffic, because they will help me to clear up some inventory that I have or something like that. But yeah, you could do some mix up of goals here, I would say.
We got 15 minutes here.
One question I had for anyone that's in the audience or listening, if you could share your role and like what your angle or focus is in the comments, that would be super helpful. I have some thoughts. They kind of differ if like you're marketing versus e-commerce versus, maybe you're a founder. So I'm curious, feel free to drop your role or your title in the comments, because I have some sort of role specific thoughts here. But yeah, Alex, going back to, happy to do what you want to say while people grab their keyboard.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. So I think like two things are on my mind. So one is I was talking to a brand, and the pushback here on like being more surgical is that sounds a lot more logistically complex. This is like you're in the pressure cooker during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Like, do I want to introduce more moving parts? And I'm gonna toss this one to Adam as like a potentially shameless plug here. Like, we have been working on something to make this a lot easier, and like I wanted to give you some airtime to talk about it, because I don't want people to walk away from a potential like offer or way of thinking or way of doing because it just seems too hard. Like, if you want to be simple, do it, but don't walk away from something a little bit more complex in nature just because you don't feel like it can be pulled off.
Yeah. We've spent a lot of time at IntelliGems, and I think like a lot of people think about IntelliGems as an A/B testing platform, but increasingly orienting ourselves as a growth platform. So how do you grow your business? I know you've heard me use the word growth a few times. How do I grow my sales? How do I grow my profits during the Black Friday season? And so part of growth are discounts. Part of growth is being targeted and personalized. And so we have a very sort of like reimagined perspective on how to do offers, how to personalize them, and how to A/B test them in order to try and maximize that growth, and specifically trying to grow not just top line, but bottom line. And so in the platform, we try and make it super, super easy to set up discounts. They plug into Shopify, so they automatically apply, and layer in all of the ability to target and different channels, different UTM parameters, different cookies. So there's a tremendous amount of targeting capabilities built into IntelliGems already. The automatic offers There's merchandising features that come out of the box, like a progress bar, like quantity buttons on your PvP. And then obviously it wouldn't be an intelligence product if we couldn't let you test it. And so we truly believe that testing is a way to understand sort of the growth maximizing outcome. And so I think that that's something that we're spending a lot of time thinking about. Would love feedback on it. It's not new, but it's sort of repositioned, and we've built a lot of new functionality on top of it. And so I would love for people to use it. We also have some awesome people on the team. Shout out to Shane, who is working with people one-on-one. If you have questions about it or have any snags, like, we are more than happy to jump on a call and hold your hand and work with you one-on-one. This does not have to be a long distance relationship here.
Huge call out there. If you are an existing Intelligems customer listening to this and you heard something that you want to try, reach out to your success manager, reach out to one of the three of us. Like, we will help you make the dream a reality. Like, we want to get more of this happening. And I think big thing what Adam was saying there is don't just use Intelligems to test it. Like, we can help you build it and actually instrument and orchestrate it through Intelligems, so you don't have to jump between all these different channels. All right, shameless plug done. Unless anyone has if either of you have something you really want to jam on, I think one thing that I keep on coming up against as I'm talking about this is the truncated timeline, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have time to test anything. There's only a month left. Either of you have thoughts on that? What would you do with, let's call it a month to 4 weeks to 6 weeks to try to figure something out here?
I will test, but I also I will look for support on previous data. Okay, what happened in Labor Day? What happened in my July 4th data? How the promos, the offers behave during those sales periods, right? And that will help me to be more informed of what could I be testing now, and the variants that I will test, maybe because of this understanding of my previous data, we have a higher chance of finding a winner there.
I'm kind of shooting from the hip here. A couple thoughts. One, I think there's really strong intuition, and if you don't have really strong intuition, I think that I and people on our team, Victor, Shane, Jerry, who leads our services group, all have really strong intuition about some of these things. So feel free to book time with us. Shoot me an email. I'm adam@intelligems.io. So that's one perspective, is intuition can go a really long way of sort of building out some of these more efficient offers. The second, and this is sort of something that I just had this thought, and I'm curious if this resonates, but you can also have potentially a few different back pocket experiences planned out. So maybe the way you decide to approach Black Friday isn't I don't have time to test, but depending on how the first week in November goes or the second week in November goes will affect how I approach the third and the fourth and the first week in December. And so potentially having a few different, types of levers to pull. And it's hey, I have a 15% off, ready to go. I have a 20% off ready to go, and I have a 25% off ready to go, is another approach where it's hey, if I'm lagging behind, and we're, by the way, going to put out a Black Friday tracker so you can track how against your performance last year, how you can track against other brands in a huge collection of benchmarked data. I think that if you want to track against that and feel hey, I'm doing better than I expected, I can afford to scale back, or hey, I really need to sort of catch up to hit different revenue or profit goals. I think that having some of those different tools in the belt to whip out, depending on that situation during the middle of the month, can be a really, really helpful thing to do as well.
I love both these. Lean on historical information. You have, maybe this is your first year in operation, you don't have Black Friday last year, but you can look at what happened last year. You can look at other things that have happened this year. Again, I think going too far back, 2025 has been a wild year in the D2C space. So again, maybe use the 4th, maybe use Labor Day as like better indicators of what could happen this Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And Adam, I'm loving what you're saying too. Like, keep the optionality open. Like, don't lock your, like, again, don't like go in with no plan or like a scattered plan. Go in with a plan, but have a few of these kind of like backup options that you can swap in and out depending on what you're seeing. All right.
Yeah. I mean, it's sorry, and that, like, just to use a football analogy, it's like, hey, if I'm a quarterback and I see the defense positioned in a certain way, I might call an audible and change the play on the fly to try and capture an opportunity that I didn't anticipate existing. And so, I think that like being able to be flexible, if you're a quarterback, you don't have a play that you can audible to, you're at a disadvantage. And so I think that like, yeah, it's for anyone who's been watching football, I think that's the mentality, that's the mindset that I'm in right now.
I love it. Also, too, if you, Adam and I just did a jam on this. I'm pretty sure it went live on Monday where we're talking about like confidence versus certainty. Hey, on a truncated timeline, you might not be able to test and get to certain, but like you can run tests to, again, on that intuition front, like instead of relying solely on intuition, let me put that into something where I'm at least getting a little bit more information than I have before. Like that is going to be more guiding than, again, I call it lick my finger, put it to the wind. Adam calls it shooting from the hip. Like there's ways to get a little bit more informed than just kind of like winging it. All right. Final call for questions. If anyone has them, if you have an offer you want us to evaluate, if you have anything you want us to talk about, again, hit us up afterwards. We are more than happy to help you strategize on this stuff. If you're an existing Intelligems customer, let's get it. We can help you like actually get it live and going.
But by the way, also to all existing Intelligems customers, all this stuff comes free out of the box with what you are currently paying for in almost most cases. So it's not costing you more. I'm not trying to sell you on more. This is just like, we want to add more value. Let us know. It's probably free for you.
Just have a more profitable Black Friday, Cyber Monday. We want to help. All right, let's end it there. Thanks everyone for joining. Again, feel free to throw your questions over social to us. Just reach out and ask us questions. We're happy to help.